Welcome everyone to Startup Shuk. We are joined today with Dor. Dor is the CEO and co-founder of Samplead.
Hi.
How
nice
are
to
you,
be here.
Dor?
I'm good. How are you?
Can you bring the mic closer again?
Yeah, 100%.
Also, you can bend it. Spin it. There we go. So, you live in Tel Aviv.
I live in Tel Aviv. I studied here.
How long was the journey?
Like 20 minutes.
Quite fast, okay.
Yeah.
So, when did you study in Reichman? It's been a while, huh?
I think I started in 2017 and graduated in 2021. It was my final year was COVID. So
Wow.
this is how I remember it. Yeah.
What did you study?
I did a bachelor in law with an MBA together. It was this program of the LLB and the MBA.
You can do that.
Here, yeah, you can.
I didn't know. Is it only for business, or is there like one for computer science, one's for like psychology?
I think there's one that is law within like a master in business, and another one that is with an MA in government or something like that. Political science.
Just 1 minute. Check. My listening feels a bit fun. Maybe my ear today woke up on the wrong side of bed.
Okay, that happens.
No, it's okay. Okay, so first of all, you're a CEO of Samplead. Obviously, we want to hear about the story of how you come up with the company. And first, we want to hear about what Dor's like, your younger days, what your hobbies are, and yeah, a bit of introduction.
Okay, so I grew up not too far from here. I have 3 older brothers. I was the youngest.
4 boys.
Yeah, 4 boys. And probably the first part of my life, I spent most of my time swimming. I was competing in swimming until I was like 16, 17. That was quite influential, I think. But like when I was 18, like everybody else here, I also had 3 older brothers. I went to the IDF and I spent like 5+ years there. I served in the Special Forces, which was another, like that was probably the next step in the journey that was very, very influential. I got out of the army, traveled like everyone else, and then just started working. For the first couple of years, I was working for a cyber company, doing sales. That was before I started studying in IDC. I was actually looking for something that would allow me to continue doing something while I was a student. Had very little understanding of the real expectations that I should have had. What does it mean to actually start university studying? How long would it take? Definitely on the first year, but that's how I got here. I started studying when I was in a full-time job, doing sales, traveling in different places in the world. And I think it's something that is repeating if I'm looking at my experience till this point, that like going to big challenges without really understanding what is about to be, but still like deep diving on this thing and figuring it out while I'm doing it, basically.
Where'd you travel after the army?
I was in South and Central America for almost a year.
You also worked or just traveled?
No, I just traveled. That was just traveling, having fun. After a long time in the army, everything started when I got back.
I often ask a lot of Israeli founders what did they, got influenced from the army, because obviously it plays a huge part in your life, especially in entrepreneurship. But also this traveling thing, it's a big tradition in the Israeli culture after the army. I haven't really spoke about that much with my past guests. Maybe you can share a bit more what you learned, the lessons, and why you think maybe more people should do it.
I think definitely everybody should do it. It's another like segment of a university in your life. When you're traveling for a long time, it changes. It's not a vacation. It's like, it's not I'm trying to have 5 days in Paris and I want to see as much as I can. You start getting into a routine. It's the first time in your life that you're basically doing whatever you want. When it comes after 5 years serving in the military, the contrast is much bigger. And it's a great place for personal development. Like you meet a lot of people, you open your mind to new things, you see new things. It also helps you I think it helps you aspire higher in a way, because you see other things and there's other ways of life, and the world is much more smaller than you think. Everything is global. And I really remember that when I got back, I didn't know what I'm about to do, but it was quite obvious for me that I want to do something different than the usual path for like 9 to 5 or something like that. I didn't really know what, but it was obvious that it needs to be different, that I want to choose my own path. And I think it's something that it doesn't necessarily need to be after the military. It's a great timing. It's also a part of the culture here. And this is another positive thing about Israel. Nobody's like looking at you like you're some kind of weirdo when you say, okay, I'm packing my things and I'm going to travel for a year. But I highly recommend, if you don't do it once in your life, it doesn't really matter when, definitely between different pages of your book, but it's a great and like it's a great experience that contributes a lot, I think.
And what led you to studying Reichman? Do you have like any other choices before?
I got a really high SAT score and they gave me a really nice scholarship. And also I thought, I had a feeling like my older brothers went to like Tel Aviv University and it was a very like hard experience. And for me, I said, okay, I wanna juggle between two things. So I want to pick something to study that I think I might be good at. And I want to find time to continue doing things while I'm a student. Like the only thing that was important for me was not just being a student for 4 years and thinking about the next step. I looked at my choices and it looked like it was the best option.
Talk about your experience while being a student and, trying to dabble, building something on the side. I also read, you founded Caricaturewall, you founded other companies. What was the precursor of your entrepreneurship journey?
So the first year of studying, I was like around 7-8 days a month abroad for work.
What work?
Back then, I was a salesperson for a cyber company, so I basically used to do demos all around the world.
You still continue.
Yeah, I continue working there on my first year here. That was a huge challenge. Like I wasn't sleeping that year. So I slept like 3.5 hours a night. And I was constantly on the juggle of like missing school, like trying to close the gap. Also, I had the scholarship that I needed to maintain like high grades. It was a very, very challenging year. After that year, I said, okay, like I need to cut. I can't continue in that pace. It was quite obvious for me that I was working for a big like public corporate and it felt like this is not what I want to do. So I went on a foreign exchange semester on my second year. That was another kind of like a break for like traveling in a way. And when I got back, I started my first business. On my second year of my studies, that was Caricaturewall. Basically, I figured out that I don't see myself building my career in a big corporate. I want to do my own thing. Second, I'm still a student, so no one will hire me for a serious job. It would be hard to maintain the situation that I had because I started working there full time before I was a student. I also read The Lean Startup. You heard about that book?
I read it, yeah.
So that was like, it really blew my mind. And 1 week after I got back from Rome, me and my brother, who's also my co-founder in Samplead, he's my older brother. We basically started working. He started working a bit earlier than I do, but we started working on this business, Caricaturewall, which was a super simple, bootstrap to the bone business, like something that you can start tomorrow morning. That's what I did in a spare room at my parents' house. And that was the main thing that I did so Samplead as it is right now, it's kind of started towards the end of my studies here. Caricaturewall and another business that we started during COVID was the main thing that I did when I was a student. And when I'm thinking about it right now, it's funny. It's like kind of like I was in university, but I was also in entrepreneurship university at the same time. So it wasn't a unique thing, but I was learning every single day how to build a business. I was making mistakes by the hundreds, but I did everything. Marketing, sales, operations, finance, in small bites, growing and growing. But that was like Samplead, the startup that we're building today, is a direct result of that process. And also things that I'm using every day, the tools that I have, like my experience as an entrepreneur is coming a lot from that experience.
And why did you start Caricaturewall? I'm guessing, you just want to build something, gain some...
We wanted to build something. There's quite a famous company called Mixtiles. So it's a B2C company. It's basically like pictures for your apartment that you can stick it wherever you want and move it around. We said, okay, we want to start something. Maybe let's do like a B2B takeoff on Mixtiles. Instead of like selling a similar product to the consumer, our initial idea was to go to, there are like a lot of startups in Israel. We'll go to the office manager, the human resources manager, and we'll offer something creative with a lot of personalization, which would be taking the pictures of all the company employees. We had a team of artists that we found through things like Fiverr, and they drew a nice picture of the employees. And the first idea was to print it on like planks. That's the idea, Caricaturewall. There's an interactive wall of all the nice hand-drawn pictures of the employees. And we bought one machine to do this plank, got one artist, and started looking for people that will buy this product. It started evolving as a part of the process, exactly like the Lean Startup methodology. In one point, we realized that people really like the hand-drawn pictures, but they wanted to be printed out on coffee mugs. So that was the best seller. And believe it or not, we sold those coffee mugs in, I think till this point, probably more than $1 million.
It's crazy.
Of just like, you throw a rock in Tel Aviv, you'll hit an office that bought this product from us. And we also worked with like 400 companies in the US. And for a while here, I was paying tuition with like this business.
It's crazy. How long did you work on it?
So first of all, it still exists. That's the
You still run it, or are you?
In one point, like we figured out, okay, this is not what we're going to do for the rest of our lives. So we spent some time in like fully automating the entire thing. Today, when you ask for a price quote from Caricaturewall, you speak to someone who isn't me, it still exists. We were working on it like full power around 2 years. Within those 2 years, it wasn't just the coffee mugs. I think we tried probably something around 50, 60 different products. It was all different takeoffs. Like we took an idea, we adjusted it a bit, went to find the first customers, build marketing around it, started like making the operations a bit more efficient. There were probably 3 like significant products. One, the coffee mugs. The other one is the actual planks. But we also had something with flip-flops. It sounds stupid, but it worked.
Where'd you put the face?
No, it wasn't. Actually, the flip-flops, we took like the rubber flip-flops and we carved the company logo from the bottom of the
sole.
Yeah. So when a company is doing like an event on the beach and they give it to their employees.
That's smart.
It gets printed like
stamp.
everywhere, and it's very good for marketing. Like, so we did that for around 2 years, and then, so I started studying 2017. Started Caricaturewall 2018, 2020. COVID hit, and everything stopped like overnight. We didn't know for how long, but it was quite obvious that at that point it felt like we're fucked. Like. There's no employees at the office. The tuition and the rent that I'm paying is still coming in, or coming out, better to say. And then like we needed to shift. At that point I said, okay, I have good approach I know how to sell like to B2B companies in Israel. So that's like maybe probably one of the craziest parts of the story. I figured out, okay, everybody's going to do something around COVID. It's going to be masks and like gloves and stuff like that. We have the ability to approach those companies, and they might be interested in like, if I'm very good at selling to human resources in Israel. So I said, okay, maybe they will be interested in getting the employees back to the office. So creating like a safer office environment. I had this idea of taking a metal plate and putting it on the bottom part of the door, allowing you to open the door without using the handle. I don't know if you remember, but in the first couple of months at COVID, that was like a thing, right? Don't touch the buttons in the elevator. Don't use the door handle. The first thing I did was, and I didn't even think about the pedal yet, I just knew that there's going to be an opportunity around COVID and I need to do something that is different and like leveraging my advantages into this thing. So I basically prepared this email that was very vague. I had a big picture of a red button that said panic on it. And I got the emails of like 100 of the like COOs and like facilities managers for the biggest companies in Israel. And I sent them an email. And I told them that I have a company that is developing like unique technologies around COVID, I think. And I just want to meet them to hear about their challenges. Like that's all I'm interested in. The first meeting was in the Weizmann Institute. I came there with practically nothing. Like I didn't even have an idea. But through the same methodology, I came, I listened, I asked the right questions, I had an idea. I said, okay, maybe we can figure this thing for you. One meeting led to another meeting. At the end, obviously, it wasn't the Weizmann Institute. It was a different company. But and like I think in like 10 days, we from idea to like alpha ugly product. And because there was a lot of panic in the first 3-4 months of COVID, I got to meet around 70 people, COOs and facilities managers of the biggest companies in Israel, face to face when the offices are completely empty. We sold that product in a lot. Okay, we sold it to Google and Iron Source and Microsoft, whatever, and it helped us pay the rent during that time. But then it was like, okay, After 3, 4, 5 months, everybody understood that it's like it's complete bullshit. I also understood it's complete bullshit, and I knew that it's not something that I want to do or continue doing. Like, but then I asked myself, okay, based on the 2 past experiences, I'm very good at doing the business development part of things. Like, I sold coffee mugs in $1 million with 0 marketing spent. And then I met 70 people face to face when it was the hardest to meet people that you don't know.
Exactly.
So maybe the actual approach, maybe we have something here about the way that we approach those customers, potential customers, and get their attention. That might be the actual product that we're selling. Not the physical, like, stupid products that we did. Maybe the approach is something that we need to, like, double down on. And actually there's also always luck in the story, in a way. So we were, like, thinking about opening an agency. That would be the 3rd business. We said, okay, like, the entire business development, the entire go-to-market that we did in the last 2 businesses, the COVID and the coffee mugs, was built on outbound. So for someone who doesn't understand, I'll just do, like, a short background about what am I talking about, so they won't get completely lost. B2B companies, they have 2 main ways to find new customers. The first one is inbound. Inbound works like a magnet in a way. So I put on a TV commercial, and at the end of the commercial, there's a number, and I'm waiting for people to call. So the leads are coming in. That's inbound. Outbound is more like a speaker. That's the other side of things. It's all the activities that I'm actively doing while I'm not waiting there for somebody to call me, and I'm looking to search for my potential customers. Usually we're talking about, like, emails, LinkedIn, phone calls. But it's a digital door-to-door selling. You're selling to strangers.
Thank you for explaining, by the way. I swear, before you come here, I Googled inbound versus outbound.
Yeah, so...
Because I read that in your LinkedIn.
Inbound is always more expensive. Why? Because I need that TV commercial that will reach...
It's like fishing.
It's not fishing. It's like ads. Everything that is ads is directed into inbound. Like, even if you hit, like, this ad on Instagram or on TikTok and you buy something, that's an inbound lead. It's just B2C. When we're talking about B2B, it's a bit different. But inbound is obviously more expensive because I need to spend money for those ads to be seen. Outbound is cheaper, much cheaper, because it doesn't cost me anything to send out an email to you. The only thing I need to do is to find your email.
But I guess it's more work.
It's more work. And it's also extremely... harder, much harder, because it's like if I'm sending you an email today, there's statistically 99% that you won't answer. So because we were very limited in funds the entire way, we always went to outbound, and we became very good at it. Like the coffee mugs and then, like, the meetings. So we said, okay, let's take the outbound knowledge that we gathered, which was mostly around text and LinkedIn. We had something that worked for us really well, and I'll tell you in a second what it was. And let's help other companies with that. The thing that really worked for us is that when we wanted to start selling in the US and we were very limited in budget, I couldn't really do marketing there. But I had a very nice visually looking product. So think about a coffee mug that has a hand-drawn pictures of your own profile picture. What we did is we started reaching out those human resources managers in the US, and we offered them a free sample of the product in return for a 10 minutes feedback call. And it worked amazingly. Like, every 7 samples that we sent, a deal of 10 units and above was sold. So that's, like, it's very positive in terms of the return on investment. And we did something quite similar with the COVID thing. We told them, like, we want to come and give you like a presentation and consultation for free or something of that sort. I don't really remember the details. But the next step was, okay, let's take this method and try to help other companies doing that. We had somebody that was working with my co-founder in his last job, and he told him, you know what, I don't know anything about LinkedIn outbound. He was the VP sales of a company in Israel back then. He says, I'll give you access to my LinkedIn account, and if you manage to generate something, I'll give you 10% of the deal. That was pure luck, really pure luck. We didn't know anything about what we were doing back then. But we took the challenge, and after like 6 weeks, there was a $150K deal that was closed based on the work that we did. That was luck, but we actually had $15,000, and we said, okay, we're convinced. Let's start an agency. Let's build another bootstrap business around the way that we are approaching customers will help other companies. And basically did that for almost 2 years. And that journey, that brought us into building Samplead. So Samplead is kind of, we had a very like a long journey there of meeting hundreds and hundreds of teams and like really diving into the pain and the problem and the solution that we're trying to create here. But Samplead today is the product version of the experience that we had when we were an agency, basically. So if you ask me, like it's from COVID solutions to coffee mugs, and now I'm building like an AI agent that is doing outbound for companies. Although it sounds like
very different,
for me, there's an obvious line that is connecting the dots between the first day that we started with the mixed styles takeoff when I was a student to the company that we're building right now. And probably I think that like in an entrepreneurial journey that I'm still at the beginning of it. Okay, there's much more ahead of me than behind me. Like basically sometimes you feel like that you're not moving anywhere and you're doing something that is stupid. Okay, when I was a student here and at the end of the day, okay, I was the owner of my own business, but I was selling like personalized coffee mugs. It sounds stupid. It wasn't the thing that I was the proudest every single day. But I would never be at the point that I'm at right now without jumping into the deep water back then. And like everything connects. As long as you're going towards the right vector. Okay, so like that's the only thing that matters.
I love it.
And this is something that like today I'm looking back, I'm like, okay, like it was quite obvious why I needed to go through those stops in order to be in the place that I'm in today. It wouldn't work any other way for me specifically.
I want to add something to your idea of vectors and like going through the points in life that led to where you are today. I wrote an article a couple days ago because I was imagining this, in my life. Where am I going? Where have I been? Where should I go next? And thought about this concept. I created it. I call it the polar visual. So it's like if the world is a circle, and the edge is like every expertise of human endeavor, you want to be a super chef, it's right here. You want to be an astronaut, that's the point right here. You're in the center, you're starting your journey. You're the baby in the cradle, in the egg, in the beginning, right? And then where should I go? Well, in the beginning, perhaps you have some like initial vector pointing to any of these directions. Maybe for you, it's because you have your background from the army, living in Israel. Maybe it points a bit to sort of entrepreneurship. So that's a certain direction. We don't really choose our initial direction. But then as you build decisions, actions, they don't all point to the same direction, but they're all generally pointing to a certain direction. At some point in your life, you gotta think, hey, if I would connect all these vectors that I have done in the past, all these actions, where am I kind of leading to? Where am I kind of going? It's like, what's the path of highest leverage from now? If I want to go to the edge of the circle, everybody like the best in their field, right? But what field? Well, I think the answer to that is like how you thought of your answer. It's not to see the edge in a circle and be like, that's an astronaut, I want to be that. Well, you're making a detour, you're making a far turn, but why not just take a point from the center and take a point to where you are now and see where all this zigzag line kind of points if they're combined together, And for you, I see now that learning from this mug business, from Caricaturewall, learning from the COVID business, turns out my real value that I can bring to the world is this helping people connect and finding leads. And that's why I'm building Samplead. I really like that idea of vectors. I think a lot of people need to learn how to like take a step back and really see what is my biggest value that I can bring to the world. Because I think that's what entrepreneurship really is. What value can I bring to the world? And everybody has a different offering per se.
Yeah, 100%. Like personally, I think that when we're talking about startup in Israel, a lot of times we hear about those stories about this team that they had an idea and they got a couple of millions of dollars in investment and then they started their path. And I think that's that's the outlier of outliers of building a successful company. 99% of the companies fail, and a lot of them, I personally think that that's the reason why. Because the only way to actually solve a real problem is to be with the people that have experienced that pain by yourself. That's the best. But if you don't experience the pain by yourself, the minimum that you need to do is to confront yourself with your potential kind of market day in, day out, and building the solution with them. It's very hard to do when you get a lot of funding at the beginning and you put yourself in this circle and you're saying, okay, I'm going to build the perfect product and then I'm going to meet I'll build it and they'll come.
Right.
what you said about the vectors, we were sitting here in IDC, so I did like a bachelor degree in law, okay? And like the natural step when you're doing something of that, like I studied almost 4 years, you go to do your internship and you take your bar exam and you become a lawyer, even if you won't be a lawyer in your life. That's what everybody does here, the vast majority. And I really remember thinking like, that's not my vector. There's zero chances in the world that I'm going to practice law. And this is something that I knew when I was a student. I enjoyed studying it. It was interesting. I liked the philosophy part of things. But being an actual lawyer, it was obvious for me, it doesn't contribute to my vector. This is something that if I'll do it through like some kind of inertia, like momentum that everybody's doing it. And I already did like 3 years or 4 years. So what is one more year just to become a lawyer? I'll make my mother more happy. But I think that it's easier sometimes when you're younger. I'm also consider myself pretty young, but it's easier thinking about vectors when you eliminate things that you know for a fact that this doesn't contribute to whatever you're about to do.
Right.
Okay? So you studied like mechanical engineering and you probably hated every second of it. And you said, okay, I'm not going to be a mechanical engineer anyway. Like I don't see myself doing something like that. There are things that I'm more interested in. So one person would tell himself, you know what? I already did 50% of the way. Let me just graduate, finish what I started, and then I'll figure it out. But it's actually taking you backwards because like a lot of my friends that went through the entire process, they knew back when they were students, they could say, you know what, I don't want to be a lawyer, but you know what, I already did this entire thing. So I'm going to finish this thing. And it's much harder for them today because those 2 years, nothing really happened. The only thing that happened is that they didn't like
pursue what they actually want.
Yeah. So the experience that they have is towards the wrong direction. So they need to go back and like kind of start from scratch in a way. Also starting from scratch, asking themselves, what do I want to do? And this is also something, it won't be the first thing that you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're like hired by someone or you want to build your own business. Like you need to start something, try it out, give it a real chance and opportunity. But if after like certain amount of time you don't feel like this is something that is contributing to your bigger picture, you also need to be like,
realistic about it.
Realistic and mature enough to say, okay, so I'm doing like I'm cutting my loss and I'm trying something else.
Right. The longer you wait, the more expensive it is to return.
That's 100%. And also, if I'm going back to being an entrepreneur, something I had a feeling when I was a student that like the longer I wait and the older I get. I also started studying when I was 25. It's not that young.
Not the youngest, yeah.
It's old. But I had a feeling that the older I get, the harder it would be for me to really start something from scratch, because I knew that probably wouldn't be easy and I'll eat like tons of shit along the way. So the decision to do something that is like, sounds stupid, but just to jump into the deep water when it wasn't optimal at all. I was a student. It was the worst. Like I have so many stories about like the mix between this and being a student. But now I'm so happy about it because I know that every day that goes by, so today I have a kid, okay? Every day that goes by, taking dramatic decisions about my life is only getting harder. And the things that you can and willing to do when you have the energy and you're young and you're also no one is counting on you, that's like a golden period of time for trial and error. And it's better to start as soon as possible. Doesn't really matter with what, if you ask me.
I agree so much. Initial direction doesn't really matter. You just have to keep going.
And just start, because something that we hear a lot, I think that this is something that is a lot around students. It's constantly taking me back. I'm seeing this, like, we're in the university, so
yeah,
I'm going to say something that's not the most optimistic, but it's important to hear.
No, we are frank here and we say what it is.
Listen, no one is waiting for you on the other side. Like, that's the truth. If you're only going to be a student and you're telling yourself, okay, now I'm a student, I'm going to focus on being a student, and my grades would be 89 instead of 87, I'm going to be on the dean list. And then when I graduate, I'm going to find my dream job and everybody will like me because I had good grades. It's a bit naive. It's like, if you had the 91 average on your grades and someone else has 85 but 3 years of experience because he did like a part-time job and he started like gathering experience while he was a student. Me personally, as a CEO of a company, I choose the other person every day of the week because that's what really matters, real life experience, and it's never too early to start. Sometimes you hear, I want to focus on this, and then I don't want this to damage my studies, but I might be also a bit radical about that opinion. But I think that you need to start doing whatever as soon as possible. As soon as possible.
I agree so much. I think it's like, if you imagine a circle, which is a forest, I'm a visual guy, so I like to make analogies. If you imagine like a circular forest, right? You're stuck in the center. You need to get out. In the beginning, it's useless to think, which direction should I? Just choose a direction, but keep going. If you walk 100 miles north and then you take a right turn, and then you take another right turn, you're going back, so just pick one direction and keep going. I guess it will take you as far as you would, and it will lead you out of the forest.
Yeah, 100%.
I want to talk about also the point about meeting people and asking their problems. I think this is one skill you have that's very, very strong, I see. And a lot of technical people like myself don't have this. And what we did is, instead, we work on our office just day and night, lock ourselves in our caves, and like you said, build it and they will come. It works for some industry, but I don't think for everything that's the case, especially for entrepreneurship. For entrepreneurship, the ground shifts all the time and you need to like ask the question, hey, is this something the market really wants? And so what I learned from time and time again is that don't build the product first, always find the problem and talk to the market. Talk about that and, I guess give advice for people who are very technical and they like to build and forgo asking questions.
I think that it's quite natural that everybody takes things that are easier for him and that he feels more comfortable in. Okay, I'm not a technical guy. I don't know how to write a single line of code. Obviously that I'm more of a people person, and I really enjoy doing sales and meeting people, and you need both sides of. So if you're an introvert and you're super passionate about tech and you want to build a company, the first thing I'm saying is okay, maybe you should meet a counterpart that is completing you. Definitely, if it's the first thing that you're doing in the world, I wouldn't highly suggest to do it by yourself. No one is perfect, and it's easier to get to that perfect recipe when there's different individuals that are bringing something else to the table. That's in general, but I think about building companies and selling products. First of all, you don't need to build anything before you get a real validation from the market that people want to pay for it. This is the important thing here.
Yeah.
Don't be it's much easier to say yes when you're offering something for free, and you need to make sure that you're not wasting your time and energy on the wrong places. What I learned is that when you hit a real pain and your solution is valid, meaning it gets the value that the customer wants. Two things. First of all, you will find people that would be be willing to pay for it and use it, even if it's clunky, ugly, very badly designed. Also, when they get the value, they couldn't care less how you get that value. So I'll give you an example. I'm building an AI machine that is generating meetings for companies. That's the most simple way to look at it. Now, the first customers that I got, first of all, the product looks like the worst thing that you can imagine, okay? It looks bad. But at the end of the day, their pain, they don't generate enough meetings for themselves. They think that my approach is a good approach, and they're willing to give it a shot because their pain is real. And also, if I'll generate meetings, they would be willing to pay. And they don't care that it looks ugly. They understand that they're the first customer, and they're so excited about fulfilling their own personal value, which is generating more meetings, that they're willing to forgive a lot of different things that we, from our self-confidence, we thought, "Hey, I can't get out with this product. It looks like shit." But so this is one thing. The second thing is that, okay, I'm building a product that is doing generating meetings using AI. Okay, or cleaning your house using a robot. Okay, I need to find, first of all, to understand if people that their house is not clean, if it's painful enough for them to pay for it. So okay, I found this person, and now I'm telling him about this very fancy, like Elon Musk type robot that is doing his house chores. Okay, but if I am cleaning his house, I can also do it by myself. People don't care how you got to the value as long as you gave it to them. So what am I trying to say? It doesn't means that, okay, you're not building a startup around going and cleaning people's houses by yourself. You're not. The vision is to build a robot that is doing that for people. But to test out if people are willing to pay for someone to clean their house, the bar to enter is much lower than you think, okay? Because you can, at first you can do it yourself, and you can find the people that will forgive you that it's actually a person that is kind of sloppy and not a robot. But then you have the first indication that says, okay, they're willing to pay. What did they like about it? What did they didn't like about it? So you're constantly in like a dialogue with your market 100% of the time. And you're only developing, moving forward when you're hearing things that are starting to repeat themselves. Mm-hmm. Because you will always have this like end customer that they have a specific need for something that is only relevant to their own use case. And through that path, you need to understand, okay, this is something that I heard once, and here there's a feature that 70% of the customers are talking about. It makes it much more easy and obvious to understand, okay, this is our roadmap. And it's like, this is something that I'm a huge believer in. I don't think that you need to meet as many people as you can. You know, sometimes we have this idea of, okay, I have an idea for a startup, so don't tell anyone about it. It couldn't be more opposite, in my opinion.
I agree.
You need to meet as many people as you can, run your idea through as many people as you can, and get their feedback. And by gathering that feedback, you'll understand what you need to do next, and then what you need to do next, and so on. And this is how we built all our businesses, and also this is how we built our startup. And this is another thing that I think that kind of makes the Samplead journey till this point to be quite unique. We didn't raise a lot of money. We built the product with real customers from day one, because that's us, basically.
Let me just highlight those 2 points that I find very, very interesting. For technical people out there, people don't care about how amazing your product is. They care about if it solves the damn problem or not, right? And number 2 is, if your idea sounds amazing, sounds brilliant in your one brain, let's see if it still sounds brilliant after 100 brains. Run it through people and see if they think the same way, right? Run it through the market, in fact.
Not only the thing is that people think, okay, I'm in the ideation stage, so I'm going to meet 200 people, and then I check this thing out of my box. I met those 200 people. Now I understand my idea completely, and I'm going to raise money. Here I got $3 million, and I'm going to do 18 months of development before I officially launch my product. Okay, it never ends. Okay, in my opinion, you speak to the first 200. You have an idea for a product. You start building the most basic MVP out there, trying to prove that you're actually bringing the value. It's not going to be the final technology that you're going to build. You find the first people to use it. You build a use case around them. Then you find the first people that will pay for it. And you sell it because it's ugly and clunky and like has many major bugs. You're selling it in 50% out of the price that you're aiming at the end. But you're constantly with like friction with real customers. It never ends. You're building in the right direction, being very close to the needs of the real people that you're building to. And I think it's a crucial part.
It's a content cycle.
Yeah, but like sometimes, I work with companies, sometimes they tell me, that we're past that stage of like asking feedback from people on our product. We're now selling. So we want to meet people that we want to sell to, but I think it's a misconception. Like they don't understand that. First of all, people buy from people, and like you need to build some kind of trust. Second, like you're constantly looking for feedback, constantly. Even if you're a public company and you have millions of users, feedback is the most important thing that you get from your target audience. It doesn't matter if they're buying right now or not. You need to be very open and honest about yourself to know that it never ends. You're never perfect. You never understand the picture completely. And the only way to answer some of your questions is by asking them the right people and not yourself.
I love it. I love it. Let's talk about Samplead. We spoke about it a lot already. But how do you solve this problem? What is your approach? How do you get people meetings?
So basically, we met hundreds of teams that are doing outbound. And the first thing that we discovered is that outbound is extremely difficult. And basically today it's never been harder to generate a meeting using outbound than it was ever before, and tomorrow is going to be harder. And there's a lot of numbers to support it. So that's the first indication that says, okay, there's a huge problem. Spoke to 500 teams. All of them told me that they're struggling with their outbound. That's the first thing. The second is that when we're talking about outbound, I wouldn't say 100%, but probably 99% of the companies are using the same methodology for outbound, which is it's called spraying and praying. Okay, because the engagement rates are so low. If I get 1% reply rate on the emails that I send, that means that I need to send 100 emails to get a single reply. That means to get numbers of actually people that are buying, I need to send tens of thousands of emails every month. Okay?
Crazy.
So I'm spraying, I'm reaching out to huge numbers of prospects. I know that the engagement is going to be low, and once I sprayed, I'm praying that somebody will actually reply. And so that's the second thing. Like, everybody's doing the same thing and it doesn't work. So maybe there's a different way of doing that. So we said, okay, what's the opposite of spraying and praying?
Praying and sparing?
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. But if spraying and praying is a quantity-oriented methodology, which means that I need to find big lists of prospects all the time. And because I'm using automation, right, I'm sending to 10,000s of people. If I send 1,000 emails simultaneously, the level of personalization that I can reach is very low, right? So everything looks the same. Hi, first name, I saw you working company name, yada, yada, yada. We said, okay, let's try to do the opposite out of this thing. Let's try to build outbound that would be much more quality-oriented than quantity-oriented. Let's see if we can actually overcome the numbers by boosting the reply rates by hundreds of percents. So we started completely manually, no technology involved. I said, okay, I'm going to take a group of 50 people, I'm going to send them the message generically, hi, first name, I saw your working company name, blah, blah, blah. And the next 50, I'm going to spend 5 minutes searching them around the web, looking at their LinkedIn profile and trying to tailor the message to them specifically. Then it grew to them specifically using something that is time sensitive, like the last post that they shared, something of that sort. We saw a boost of 1,000% in reply rate.
Wow.
So, and we tested a lot of things really manually, talking about tens of thousands of messages that were written manually, because we wanted to find something that is stable enough. And through that process, we came up with a new methodology that we call it triggered-based outbound. So we think that the problem is that spraying and praying is spamming. Okay, people are reaching out to you and there's no reason for you to reply. What we noticed is that if we're using a specific moment in time, a trigger or some kind of engagement, and we implement it into the messages, there's times 15 more replies. So I'll give you the example, easy to understand. Sending you a message saying, hey, I saw that you're a student at IDC. Or, I listened to you speaking on that podcast yesterday with Dor Vardi, and I really enjoyed what you had to say about vectors. The chances of you to reply to the second message, 10, 15 times higher. Now, the only problem is that it requires a lot of research. So that's the technology that we're building. We are not looking for people, we're looking for those triggers, for those conversation starters that are real, that could suggest intent. And we are going very, very long across the web, and we're doing prospecting. We're finding people in places that no other tool finds. Then we actually turn it into outbound. So we build conversations on LinkedIn between profiles of interesting people. We're starting from a very personal place, and we continue handling the conversation. These are things that we learned, like what our customers really need in terms of their value. But that's basically what we're doing. We are building a product that is in the category of AI SDRs. So I'll explain here a bit. That would be so. We talked about outbound earlier. Usually in B2B companies, the job that is the title that is in charge of doing outbound is called an SDR or a BDR, which stands for a sales development rep or a business development rep. Probably the junior position for anyone who wants to start doing tech sales. That would be the first thing that they'll do. Their job is to generate meetings, and they're usually using outbound. So now there's a new category with generative AI and everything that is happening that says, okay, what was once a rep using multiple tools will now be one single solution that is powered by AI and doing the entire process, kind of eliminating some of those SDRs. We're in that category, but the thing that we are doing different than our competitors is that we're not just automating outbound, we're focused on changing the way that it's performed, doing something that is much smaller numbers, much more personalized, lower quantity, higher quality. I hope that answered your question.
That's an amazing rundown. I think you tell all of your secrets now. No, but that's amazing. I have a question though. Is there an overlap between your past in cybersecurity and this, like finding hints or hooks that people put out there that we can use to help us connect with them? Because it's almost like OSINT, open source intelligence, looking into the internet and what this person is about, what they're doing.
It's interesting to look at it like that. Also, I'm not the techiest guy. Also, when I was doing cyber, I think most of the things that I took from there was mostly around sales, which was my job, and talking in front of people and like improvising in the moment. But the methodology that we're building is 100% coming from the intelligence world. My CTO, my technical co-founder, we are three founders. So me and my brother, we started in the mugs together, and like we bring the domain expertise around outbound to the table. At the point when we felt like, okay, we have something that is mature enough in order to start building a product around, we knew that, coming up on what I said earlier, we knew that we technically would never be able to create something like that. And so we were searching for a co-founder for quite some time. And we found somebody that was still very, very talented. Actually published he published a research about generating influence using text in the social media domain when he was still in the military. He served many years. So that's where that is coming from, I think.
Another question on the feature. I pray and pray. I'm guilty of it, to find prospects not just for the startup Shuk podcast, my guests, but also for my own startup. But I think one thing that worked most of the time is if I told them, hey, this person of your connection, actually, we've met before. Do you do that in the platform where you basically, if there's a target named Tomer, and Tomer knows Gil, and Gil has been with me before, in business with me before, maybe if I can use that connection to get to Tomer, it'll be easier for Tomer to accept.
So we're doing it in a different way. Like we're finding potential within their existing network, and we offer them to go pursue that path in a way. But you don't do it completely automatically black box, because, for example, there's many people that are connected with me on LinkedIn that if you write them a message, tell them that you did a podcast with me, and you think that would open the door, it probably won't, because they don't know me.
Right.
Because it really depends on how many people you are connected to.
Well, or maybe the connection is not via just LinkedIn, but also like personal connection. You've seen them on Instagram post a picture together.
That's 100%. Yeah, this is something that it's extremely influential, and the basics is similar. You need to find a good reason to reach out. That's the thing. A good reason to reach out could be something that you noticed about them, somebody that you noticed that is related to them, something that you noticed about their company. It all adds up to the same thing. Listen, I did my homework. I spent some time before I sent you that message. You're not a part of an automated campaign that is being sent to 10,000 of people, like 10,000 people simultaneously. And this is a better start, than anything else. As granular as you can get, and the rule says that as long as they share this piece of information that you're using with a smaller group of people, the chances of you to get a reply is higher, which makes sense, basically. So if I'm telling you, you know what, hey, I saw that we're both part of this group on Facebook, or there's a group on LinkedIn like CISOs for CISOs. It's a very famous one. It has probably 500,000 members or something. So if I'm sending somebody a message saying, hey, we're both part of that group, it doesn't say too much. But if I'm telling him, you know what, you and I, we both graduated the same year. That's something that's a bit stronger. And, I saw you speaking in that podcast. It's just two people.
That's been a masterclass. Hey, Dor, has there been a time or period in your whole journey where you lost a lot or you went down, really lost, not just physically, but also perhaps mentally or, And what was your lesson and how did you get back?
So there's many. Like, I have to be honest, like being an entrepreneur and sometimes people ask you, what's your superpower? So my superpower is to eat shit, basically. Like, I'm not kidding at all. Most of the time, things don't go your way. Things that could get worse usually get worse. It's a real challenge. And if you can't find a way to enjoy it with the challenge, you're playing the wrong sport. For me, it was many times. Like we started the business at the beginning. When we did the mugs business, on the first 6-7 months, I used to be a security guard during nighttime, so I could pay my rent because wasn't really standing enough. And then you get to a point and things starts feeling comfortable, and then COVID hit. And you don't know what's gonna go. And also, I went here, I studied a law and an MBA. And also, I'm selling coffee mugs.
Yeah.
Wasn't the proudest, what I was doing. And then we started, we said, let's do a startup. We were looking for a CTO. And sometimes you meet someone, you do a process for 2 months, and then he decides he doesn't want to join you. So you feel like you're going back to square zero. It happens all the time. For us, raising first funds for this startup was the biggest nightmare of my life. It went really bad. It didn't work at all for many months of getting repetitive no's, just no and no and no and no and no. At the end of the day, I built the company without those funds. We did raise funds, but we sold the product in hundreds of thousands of dollars before we actually did that. And the most recent thing is the war in Israel. I spent 5 months on reserve with 50% of my team. It's a very small startup company. At its early days, it could be a death sentence for something like that. Also to come back for after being in Gaza and to pick up the pace. It's a huge challenge that in some points I didn't really understood how I'm about to do it. But after all of this, at the end of the day, I'm doing what I chose to do. This is a gift, okay? It's if I would be working in a 9-to-5 today, my soul would die. That's at least what I'm convincing myself. And I'm super fortunate that I have the chance and the opportunity to pursue whatever I want, to call my own journey, destiny, you call it whatever you want. But there's always a bright side in everything, even in the lowest points. Nobody forced me into this situation. I chose it completely by myself. And also sometimes, I look and I say, a year ago, if I would take me 1 year back and tell me this is where you're going to be in 1 year, I would say, okay, I'll take it. So now when I'm 1 year ahead, I need to remember that, okay, I always want more and I'm never satisfied. But sometimes you need to celebrate small wins and also remind yourself that at the end of the day, you're healthy, you're doing whatever you love. And it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's part of the game. No pain, no gain.
No pain, no gain.
Yeah.
Dor, one final advice before we wrap this up for students, entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs who want to start something while they're in university.
Do it. Do it yesterday. Don't wait for anything. Go and start doing mistakes. Don't try to avoid doing those mistakes because they will come, and it's just a part of the game. It's a part of your way. You can't become better if you're not making mistakes, so it's better to start as soon as possible. It doesn't need to be the fanciest, doesn't need to be the thing that you're going to do for your entire life, but start experimenting, start experiencing, and just don't be afraid. Give it a shot, believe in yourself, and at the end of the day, whoever doesn't give up usually wins. Might be the longer way, but that's the most important thing.
Whoever doesn't give up will win.
Yeah.
It's about staying in the game, yeah?
Yeah. Wow.
It's been a pleasure, Dor.
I enjoyed it as well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. It was fun.